Hello, hello. Welcome. I hope you all can hear me. If somebody just wants to throw something up there in the chat to let me know that my mic is good. I had some, as per usual, technical difficulties earlier today, but I'm hoping that you guys can hear me. Right on. Good. So super excited. Here I am on Crowdcast, my first Crowdcast casting, and yeah, it's exciting to be here, and I'm glad you guys could all join me. I have a little bit of a presentation and some material that I wanted to share with you today that I actually had designed to give at an event last weekend. As you all know, events have been canceled throughout the city sporadically since then. And I just wanted to find a way to be able to share some of this content that I had put together and to be able to really just kind of provide another opportunity for us to get to connect and to see each other, or at least you can see me. and yeah, I just wanted to share. I think it's really important. It's something that I talk about often in workshops and from stage in live events, is really overcoming overwhelm and how to connect with who you are on the inside so that you're able to show up in the world in a way that aligns with who you are. So I wanted to get started, and I am hoping all goes well. I just want to give maybe about 20 minutes of what I would have talked about on stage at my presentation, and then I kind of wanted to open it up to see if you had any questions or be able to chat about what's going on specifically around overwhelm and what's coming up for you, even after we have a little talk here today about what this is all about. So let's flip over to maybe I love technology. So yeah, this is overcoming overwhelm. This was about how to crush stress and create a career that lights you up. I want to talk today about getting back to what's important. And I feel like with things that are going on in the world today, we can get easily lost in what's going on in our lives, or what was going on in our lives before the world changed a little bit. So I want to talk about just the whole word of overwhelm. And sometimes overwhelm itself can be overwhelming. And it all kind of starts with this idea of not being certain about what's going to happen. I'm guessing one or two of you have experienced overwhelm in the last few days, and that's why you're here. And it's really easy to kind of get wrapped up in current events and what's going on, and kind of take all of the stresses of the world onto our own shoulders. And I'm just wondering if any of these kind of sound familiar to you. Just really, just always feeling like there's so much going on for you, and if you could only get caught up doing those things that you need to do, rushing to the store, making sure that work is going well. What does even work look like these days? All of the stresses of what's going on can just add on top of some of the things that we were already feeling before the world changed. One of the things too is maybe you've said right to yourself, there just never seems to be enough time to do what I want to do, when you're running around on empty and you don't know how you can possibly keep up the pace Everybody seems to need a piece of you. There's maybe new people in your life that are dependent upon you now that weren't dependent upon you before in that way. For myself, I have an elderly neighbor now, and I'm doing his shopping and helping him out. He did not need me to do his shopping last week, but now there's more people in my life that need a little bit more attention and kindness. But if we're not looking after ourselves, then we can kind of be left with this feeling of not having anything left. And then we start to wonder, like, why are we even bothering? Why are we even bothering looking out for other people? Why are we even bothering looking out for ourselves? Why do we even bother worrying about those things that meant something before all of this happened? Why are we even bothering about being stressed about work? And even now, I think things seem to be maybe under the magnifying glass a little bit more. Maybe some things that didn't bother you before are really bothering you now. And here's the deal, like, I really know what it's like to feel that feeling of being stuck and being lost and wishing hard that things didn't suck. Because sometimes it feels like things just suck. Things are changing so very fast these days. What your life was like yesterday could be drastically altered by the events that happen directly to you or to your family or at your job. Some things don't look the same as they did last week in any of those areas. And then there's all the layers of things that happen around us, around in your community, with your neighbors, with your country, and even around the world. Technology today has really made information so easy to get. And I wanted to say, like, things are at our fingertips, but I think it's even more than that. Things are in front of our eyes, and before we even pick up our phone sometimes Alexa and Google are telling us the news before we're even out of bed. Things are happening so fast, and we're getting information even faster than we could ever imagine possible. But I really want to ask you, what was important to you before all this happened? Can you even remember what it was like, if it, and where you were at in your life? Were you feeling overwhelmed already at work? Were you feeling overwhelmed and a sense of not belonging before all of this happened? And now, with isolation and self monitoring, are you feeling it even more? Just because things have happened in our world, it doesn't necessarily mean it's changed who we are, though, or our core values. And we can sometimes get wrapped up in that. When we get overwhelmed, it can just spread throughout our lives. It can cause strained relationships and unwanted hardships in areas of our lives that we weren't even really expecting it. If we're feeling really overwhelmed at work because of how things have changed, that overwhelm just seeps into the rest of our lives, into other areas. We can have trouble sleeping, and that just feeds this sense of overwhelm if we're not getting enough rest. And we could be on track to burning out when we're trying to manage all of these things all of the time. And overwhelm really does affect our mental health. It, Overwhelm is and stress and the stress hormones that go through our bodies impact our mental health in ways that we're only actually beginning to understand. There's some studies that are coming out of the UK that are showing that people are fundamentally changed by the amount of overwhelm that they experience. It changes how they react, it changes who they are. So I do know what it's like to wish that something was different and that I could be really connected and engaged in what I do. For me, it became overwhelm became really something that I needed to pay attention to when it started at my job. And I became really disconnected with who I was on the inside. I felt like I was in a place where I couldn't connect and be who I wanted to be on the outside. I was really misaligned. Um, Now I'm a private life coach. I specialize in career renovation and helping people find that connection with who they are. But it's more than just finding a connection with what you do and who you are at work, but it's really being able to find a connection in all areas of your life and really being able to figure out how to navigate through those challenges and those problems, through the crises that's happening, and other crises that can spring up and happen. We just don't know what's going on, and coach people in helping them be grounded and rooted in who they are, so that they're able to weather the storm, so that they're able to overcome these challenges, to overcome problems and crises, to really be able to be flexible and to be resilient and to find control in their lives. I am a professional speaker. I do workshop facilitation. I'm an NLP practitioner, so I study neuro linguistic programming, which could be a whole other topic for sure. However, my heart really lies in the one-on-one coaching that I do, and being able to help people really connect, like I said, with themselves and who they are. Um, I really, really enjoy helping people shift and being able to watch them transform their lives into something that is beautiful to them. And they're really able to show up in their lives differently. I will be, like I said, leaving a little bit of time here at the end for us to talk about shifts and how you maybe could share a little bit of how you've been able to either overcome overwhelm in your life, or what's overwhelming you right now that's really stopping you in your tracks. I just want to start to have a few minutes of a little Q&A at the end in the chat box, and just be able to spend some time with you guys over that. So I hope that sounds good for you. And yeah, so let me ask you before we get into some chatting about really what's going on with you. I'd like to know, and you can pop into the chat box if any of this sounds familiar to you. And I'd like to know if you've been unfocused lately, if you're feeling like you're not able to get anything done or follow through on any task. And that could be at work or in your life. And I'm wondering if you're having more trouble lately connecting to people. And I know that connection these days is a little bit different, and it could be a little bit harder with some of the social distancing that we have in place. But I'm wondering if you're feeling that connection is missing in your life, like from inside and not just from talking with people, because we can connect with people now in different ways and in new ways. But the type of connection I'm talking about is that, like, do you feel like people are understanding what you're going through? And are you unable to get things done like you used to? Do you find that there are just so many things going on that you're not getting traction in anything? And overwhelmed by the thought of doing anything different. And I'm just wondering if any of that sounds familiar to you or strikes a chord with you or anything like that. Um, so I see that Ali in the chat says that it's really hard because meeting peers is difficult, and it is a struggle right now to be able to find a new balance with what's going on, and it can take some time. Overwhelm comes into our lives when we step out of our comfort zone and when we start to do something a little bit differently than what we expect. Overwhelm comes with when our expectations aren't met. We start to get stressed. It's that energy and those chemicals that start to flow through our bodies. When we step outside our comfort zone, we really can have a surge of those chemicals and of that energy hit us all at once. When we are in such uncertain times, it just kind of compounds it because we're uncertain in so many areas of our lives right now. Um, so trying to find ways to connect with not just at work with peers, but also trying to find really new and interesting ways to connect socially can be really, really helpful. I held my first Toastmasters meeting today over Zoom, which is a little strange that Toastmasters is about public speaking and getting up in front of an audience, but things have changed now. And how can we navigate still learning those things that Toastmasters can teach me? How can we now facilitate it over the computer? I also have a friend in isolation, so we had coffee together today over the computer, but we still were able to enjoy a cup of coffee and some good conversation, and just finding ways to be able to do that. It's really important. When we have trouble connecting with people, it's often one of several things that can happen to us. So the way I'm going to flip back here for a moment into my presentation, maybe. Oh, it's up here. Just because I do have something that I did want to share. So just for the last few minutes here, maybe. No, here. And what it is a little bit about trying to find a plan that can really help you overcome those obstacles that are standing in your way. And I don't know if I'm sharing right now because I don't see that. So we're going to try again. And here we go. So making a plan to overcome your overwhelm is really understanding about what gets you into overwhelm in the first place. And understanding overwhelm is knowing actually what it is. And overwhelm is being temporarily unable to think clearly due to these emotional feelings that make you feel and experience too much distraction. So instead of being able to focus on one thing, like meeting new people, for instance, instead of being able to focus on that, overwhelm comes in and really wants to distract us from doing that thing. There's 3 steps that I see as understanding the whole process to overcoming overwhelm. And that's really to discover the entry point or the trigger that puts you into overwhelm. And then it's really uncovering your fear pattern. And I'll talk a little bit about that. So I believe that overwhelm comes when we don't understand what our fear pattern is. And when we can't understand what that is, we're unable to break the cycle. And the last process is to really, I know it sounds easy, but it's really to do the opposite of the thing that you've been doing or the thought that you've been having. So when I talk about the cycle of overwhelm, this is the trigger that I was talking about. There's something that happens that puts you into a state of overwhelm. And when that happens, you then begin to have thoughts that prevent you from acting in the way that you expect to act. And those thoughts create this reaction. So it happens in a way that becomes a cycle, and it becomes a habit over time. So something happens, we have a thought about it, and then we react in the same way to those thoughts. And it, like I said, it happens over and over again. Breaking the cycle of overwhelm is understanding what happens right before the trigger. Well, you can't understand what happens right before the trigger until you understand what the trigger is. And this part is really about being self-aware, starting to do work on understanding what triggers you, what overwhelm feels like, and then what happens right before that. Understanding your thoughts around that is really, for me, understanding what my fear pattern is. So what is the way that I react to the overwhelm over and over again? And overwhelm is a reaction to fear. It's a reaction to us stepping outside our comfort zone. Overwhelm is when we step into this fear zone that surrounds our comfort zone, when we get into that uncertainty. That's what I'm talking about, fear. It's really about being in that uncertain place and what we do to not want to be there. It's habitual for us to always want to stay and be comfortable. And then, like I said, it's understanding all of those things and then doing the opposite of what that is. When you can understand your overwhelm cycle and understand these 3 steps, you can overcome your overwhelm. You can break the habit and break the cycle and dig into what overwhelm can really look like. But the key to understanding overwhelm and to overcoming it is to really take action to make these changes. It's not just going to happen. Overwhelm is something that you've built upon, and it is a habit. It serves a purpose. It protects you, because once you're overwhelmed, you're going to have a reaction to that overwhelm that's actually going to reduce that overwhelm for a minute or two sometimes. But that's why we get into that cycle, and really understanding, taking action to break that cycle, understanding and becoming aware of your trigger, understanding your fear pattern, and working to do the opposite. All of those is going to take work. All of those things you need to put, you don't need to, I don't like that word. In order to make a change, it requires some energy and some action on your part. So I love this, this whole idea of understanding that it doesn't matter how many times you try to do this. It doesn't matter how many times you become overwhelmed. What matters right now is that you decide to make a difference in the cycle and in what's happening in your life so that you can move forward. Here's a great quote that I'm just going to use just to wrap up. And it's, "Promise me you will not spend so much time treading water and trying to keep your head above the waves that you truly forget how much you have always loved to swim." And I just wanted to say that overwhelm for me, like, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that overcoming overwhelm is something that I've overcome. Overwhelm happens all the time. What we work towards with overcoming overwhelm and understanding how you connect who you are on the inside with how you want to show up, it's understanding how to get out of that cycle of overwhelm. And it's about understanding how to do it quicker and quicker all the time. Things are going to overwhelm us. I myself became completely overwhelmed yesterday, and I just needed to take a break. But I was able to sit down. I was able to understand my fear pattern. I was able to understand how I was reacting and how I wanted to react. And then I was able to put those things in place so that I didn't get stuck in overwhelm. Getting overwhelmed, like I said, in your job, in a social situation, being overwhelmed by the state of affairs these days, it can happen. Like things can happen so fast. Building resilience around your overwhelm, building that up so that you can be flexible when something goes wrong. How are you going to course correct without being stuck? That's the kind of things that I want to talk about here on Wednesday evenings in my half-hour sessions. I want to start talking about overwhelm and how we can become more resilient together, and those things that we can put in practice that will help us be more flexible when it does happen. Really finding and understanding who you are and having this core sense of being able to show that in the world is about building confidence. It's about being congruent. It's being in alignment, and it's really being able to show up in a way that allows you to be who you are. Um, it's all connected. It's this whole this whole big it's this whole big formula, right? That everything comes together. And when you can understand this, for me, this is the key bit, is understanding those things about overwhelm, so that when you do start to make changes in your life, when you do start to look for a new job, when you do start to find a new relationship, when you, all of those things that you really, really want to do, if you don't have this core sense of understanding overwhelm, then it's all for naught. It's you might be able to do it once or twice, but you're not going to be able to repeat being yourself over and over again to really grow and shine. So that's all I have to say for tonight. I do feel like I rushed through some things, but I'm really hoping that you were able to find something valuable. This session will, I think, cut off quite quickly in just 2 minutes. So if you have anything that you would like to say in the chat, let me know. Like I said, I'm experimenting with this new platform. And I do, I like the chat. I like some bits of it, but right now it has a half hour session. So, I hope you guys, you can follow me on Crowdcast. You can sign up for next week. And I'll be putting more ideas out there for these half-hour sessions on Wednesday at 6:30. So spread the word. Right, while still observing social distance protocols, spread the word, and not your germs. Thank you for coming out. Any questions, you can reach out. There's a find out more button right below if you want to hop on over to my website. You can find my email there. You can follow me on LinkedIn and Instagram. Don't follow me on Facebook because I'm never there. And I'll be looking for actually a new platform, which I'll let you guys know about on where I'm going to create my next free group, and how you can be involved in learning more about overcoming overwhelm and all of the things that I do and all of the information that I have to share. So it was short and sweet, and and I really thank you for coming out. And I think we'll keep them half-hour sessions because it doesn't take too much time out of your day, and I hope that there's always a golden nugget that you can take away with you and bring into your life. So again, thank you so much for coming out tonight to my first Crowdcast, and I hope to talk to you really, really soon. So yeah, that's it. I've been cut off. So take care and stay safe.